Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. Hope you're well. Chinese digital yuan, their central bank digital currency, is gaining momentum. Let's go right into the article from CNBC and check it out. We talked about digital currencies yesterday. I actually did a whiteboard video today on digital currencies and how this gives the central planners the type of control they desire. But this article from CNBC gives us an update on the Chinese digital currency. So digital yuan notches 8.3 billion in transactions in 6 months, taking a tiny share of payments. So yes, it is true. This is taking a tiny share of payments overall, but the share is increasing. The key points: cumulative digital yuan transactions have reached 87 billion yuan, $13 billion. And this is since the program started, I believe, about a year and a half ago. This is according to the PBOC, the People's Bank of China. That means digital yuan transactions totaled 53 billion in the second half of last year. Based on CNBC calculations of previous released figures, the central bank began testing the digital yuan about 2 years ago, but limited access and incentive for use have kept transaction value well below that of dominant mobile pay apps like Alipay. So this is a question that I get a lot. What would be the incentive for people to start using a central bank digital currency if we were to have one here in the United States? And it's quite easy, just stimmy checks, free money, quote unquote free. I think that's the way it goes down. At some point in time, we're going to have another black swan event, or we're going to have a collapse in the stock market. And as we know, the more quantitative easing you do, the more the more the economy is financialized, the greater dependency on the stock market and asset prices the real economy actually has. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So we're making the bubble bigger and bigger and bigger, if you want to look at it that way, to the point where now our entire economy is dependent on asset bubbles, and not just asset bubbles, but asset bubbles that are continuing to expand. That said, the more the economy is dependent upon the asset bubbles, the greater incentive the central planners have and the politicians to continue to blow air in these bubbles. I mean, and what's ironic too, this is the exact same thing they did in Weimar Germany. Exact same thing. I'm not saying that we are going into hyperinflation here in the United States, and that's something that you should watch out for, but just read history for heaven's sakes. And you'll notice that in the late, well, it was teens, so it would be 19, call it 19 into 1920-ish, right around there. That in Germany, they thought they had created an economic miracle, that no longer did they have to worry about productivity or producing more than they consume. They found a different way to get rich, simply printing money. Why? Because asset prices were going up at a faster rate than consumer prices. So they would acknowledge, okay, yeah, fine. Inflation is at 20% per year, but so what? Asset prices are going up by 30%. So on net balance, we're still getting richer. And of course, that movie doesn't end well. And so it's not just the hyperinflation. People, I think, get too fixated on the currency and forget about the economy. A currency is just gives us a means to transact efficiently, so we don't have to barter. But what's most important is the goods and services that are being created, and whether that's growing or whether that's declining. And so I think what we have to understand is that while those asset prices were increasing in Weimar Germany, the wealth was being destroyed, meaning the country's ability to create goods and services. It was gradually being destroyed. And we see that happening in the United States today. We say, oh my gosh, we've got this economic growth. Look at this. We've got economic growth over here. We're creating all of these jobs. No, we're not. We're not. Yeah, nominal growth, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that we're getting wealthier. That doesn't mean that the standard of living is improving. That mean, in fact, that this could all, you could have economic GDP, or you could have GDP, nominal GDP going up, while the standard of living is plummeting. Have we not seen that in 2021? I mean, would anybody argue that the standard of living in the United States is better today than it was in 2019? I mean, absolutely not. So my point there is you've got to focus on the on economic output. You can't just focus on what's happening to the currency. So when we look at when we look at Weimar Germany through that lens, okay, let's shelf hyperinflation for a while and let's just focus on what was happening to economic output. And in that case, it's very similar to what we see in the United States today. So I don't know how on earth I got off on that tangent. So I apologize. But back to the central bank digital currencies. And the PBOC began conducting trials of the digital yuan 2 years ago. Oh, that's right. When we saw asset prices going up. That's where I was going with that. And then, so we've got 13 billion roughly. So I don't know that those are significant numbers because, or that really tells us the full story, because they only issued it to a certain number of people and they only gave a certain number of businesses the ability to accept the central bank digital currency as a form of payment. So I think when this is rolled out, when this is rolled out in the United States, it'll be a response mechanism to a stock market crash. That was really my point. And the government, I think the Fed's going to come in and do quantitative easing. I don't think that's really going to move the needle. And I think the Fed put has almost expired. And then I think the government's going to come in and they're going to say, hey, let's go ahead and do deficit spending. Let's send out stimmy checks, because that's the only way that we can increase aggregate demand in the economy. I think they also, especially if inflation is running hot, they might do this in tandem with price controls. So obviously this is the worst idea that anyone in human history has ever had. But look at the group of politicians that we have today globally, and the global elite, the IMF. Look at the ideas that are coming out of the World Economic Forum. And would it surprise you at all to hear them actually say that we need to increase demand, so therefore we need to give out stimmy checks, but we've got that pesky inflation, so let's just give everyone more money, but let's just put a cap on prices, so then we can't have inflation. Problem solved. It's just this cartoonish version of economics that you would expect from a 5-year-old. And I think we will most likely get that from the central planners that are trying to run the show in 2022 and beyond. So I think that's how they roll out the digital currency. It's just, hey, we need to give out stimmy checks. It's inefficient. Why would you want to wait for your stimmy check? Just download the Fed app, as an example, and we'll give you your $2,000. You'll get it within the next half hour, I think. And then for the businesses, your PPP checks, there you go. Here you go. Download the app and you'll get pre-approved for your $100,000 loan. That's really not a loan because you don't have to pay it back. And all you have to do is download this app. And therefore, the customers can use their stimmy checks to buy your stuff that you're importing from China. Pretty much how it works, right? So main takeaway here is the new users have climbed. I think that if the incentive structure is there, then this is just kind of a no-brainer. because people in China are very used to using Alipay, or they had one other WeChat, I think, or I guess that service has some sort of payment mechanism that's in the app. Not sure how it exactly works, but the bottom line here is the Chinese citizens are becoming very, very comfortable using apps and these mobile forms of payment. They're not using cash, I don't think very much at all, and not even using a debit card. All this mobile pay. So I think that if they wanted to increase the user rate of the central bank digital currency, as long as it's in the form of an app, which I think it probably will be, this is just a very easy, simple transition. I think it would be this way in China, and I think it would be the exact same in the United States, or really wherever it's rolled out. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Make sure that you always stand up for freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism.